What's up, everyone? It's Thursday. We've made it officially a couple hours away from the start of Thursday night football and the start of week 7. So, you know what time it is. I've got my weekly game picks and locks for you guys. So, let's get right into it. Our first game of the week, we've got the Chiefs at the Raiders, and hopefully I'll be able to put this video out before tonight's game gets started, but if not, I apologize. But either way, divisional game. Chiefs, perfect no more. They got their first loss last week versus the Steelers, and they really didn't show up until it was too late. Second half of that game when they really kind of started to get things going. And on the flip side, the Raiders, close loss versus the Chargers. Divisional loss counts more, and unfortunately, they haven't looked the same. I don't think Carr is 100% healthy yet, and I'm still waiting to see that same Raiders team at the start of this year that can put up points on offense with the best of them. And Chiefs-wise, I look for that bounce back. To me, I know it might sound silly, but I think the team that wins this game is the team that plays the closest to their abilities, because both these teams are talented. They've got guys on offense, on defense. The Chiefs more so on defense. So I think whoever is closest to their true identity wins this game. And to me, I just think I have more faith in the Chiefs. They're more solid. I think they make less mistakes. They're healthier, especially at the quarterback position right now. And I think, with a coach like Andy Reid, he'll have them ready to bounce back. It's a short week, but nonetheless, the Chiefs defensively also present more problems, I'd have to say, than the Raiders do. It's a Thursday night game, but divisional game too. It could be low scoring, could be high scoring. I think with that Raiders defense, there will be points to be put up, and on the flip side, the Raiders will have to sling the ball to kind of keep up with the Chiefs. So I can see this game being in the 20s, but when it's all said and done, I got to go with the Chiefs. They've been more balanced all year. I think Carr's still not 100%, like I said, so I'll take the Chiefs outright. As far as the spread goes, Raiders are at +2.5 at home, and to me, I just think, it is a home game for the Raiders, but the Chiefs, if they do win, which I do think that'll be the case, they're going to win by at least a field goal, so I'm going to take them to cover the spread. Moving right along, we've got the Bucs versus the Bills in Buffalo, and with the Bucs, they're coming off a loss versus the Cardinals where Winston got hurt, and unfortunately, it was kind of a done deal afterwards. They did their best to, attempt to come back, but just didn't happen. Now, Winston has said that he will play this upcoming week. He's practiced, but he hasn't thrown yet. I'm sure that'll change. Unfortunately, not the easiest comeback with that Bills defense to go up against, especially on the road. The Bills have playmakers. They keep games ugly and close, don't give up a lot of points, and I think they're going to make that Bucs team kind of one-dimensional a little bit. With that being said, offensively also, the Bills, they don't really have that many weapons that scare you. Clay is out. Tyrod Taylor is dual threat, so that does help. They have also had the bye to get ready for the Bucs, and like I said, I do think they're catching the Bucs at an opportune time. I could see them making the Bucs one-dimensional, having to rely only on the run game, and they'll be ready for that. So for that reason, I got to give the edge to the Bills if I had to pick them outright. But I will say, in terms of the spread, the Bills are at -2.5 at home. For me, this game is almost a coin flip, honestly, because I don't really like what the Bills have offensively. They're more of a defensive team. And on the flip side, the Bucs, it's going to matter how Winston comes out and plays. And right now, no one really knows how that'll be. So as far as the spread goes, to kind of cover myself, I will go ahead, take the Bucs. I think it'll be a close game decided by a point or two, something like that. So I'm going to roll with the Bucs to cover the spread. Next, we've got the Panthers at the Bears in Chicago. And this is a game that I've had circled on my calendar for a long time. Panthers fan, originally from Chicago, so I know both these teams pretty well. With the Panthers coming off a tough loss versus the Eagles Thursday night, so they've had a little bit more rest. A game where that offense did not play well. Cam could not stop turning the ball over. Probably should have had another interception. But even with that being said, the Panthers still had a chance to come back, but Cam just did not look well, had really bad decision making, and that's always been his issue, and that's why I personally can't trust the Panthers offense. On the flip side with the defense, Kuechly in concussion protocol, I think all signs point to the Panthers trying to play this safe and holding out their best defensive player for a week, especially versus a Bears matchup that on paper the Panthers should have the advantage. But speaking of the Bears, they come off their own surprising win versus the Ravens on the road. Sitting at 2-4, Trubisky got his first win. As far as the offensive was concerned for the Bears, they didn't put up a lot of yards, especially through the air. And I think that's what is going to be needed to beat the Panthers. They can be taken advantage of through the air, but that front seven, it has talent on the line, especially a little bit less so without Kuechly, but still, they've got playmakers. So I think it'll be tough in terms of getting the ball running for the Bears, but still Trubisky's mobile, so that helps. But as far as the matchups go, offense versus defense, I got to give the edge to the Panthers defensively just because the Bears aren't that kind of arid out team. And then the Bears defense versus the Panthers offense. The Bears defense is underrated. I will be the first one to tell you this. They're making moves in the right direction. And honestly, I could see the Panthers offense. It's really just all over the place. It all just depends on what Cam decides to come out and play. Is it going to be the Cam that's wildly inaccurate? Is it going to be the one that turns the ball over? Or is it going to be the one that kind of trusts himself, takes the runs when he sees them, doesn't force himself to pass, and plays smart football? Now, I have to say that Cam has usually had pretty good games versus the Bears, so I will give the nod to the Panthers on the road. If there's an upset, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the upset of the week. Maybe that's me being a little paranoid, but still, I'll take the Panthers outright. As far as the spread goes, the Bears are at +3.5 at home, and they've done a really good job of covering, but honestly, I think if the Panthers win, it'll be by more than 3 points, more than 4 points. So I'm going to go ahead, roll with the Panthers as far as the spread goes, too. Next, we have got an AFC clash with the Titans versus the Browns, and, well, the poor Browns still winless, 0-6. After quarterback changes last week, they're now going back to Kaiser, so offensively the Browns are a mess. Don't let what anyone else is telling you fool you. They just don't know what they're doing. The quarterback situation there is still a question mark. On the flip side, the Titans had a nice win versus the divisional Colts. They really got the run game going. Mariota was back, and honestly, I think even if Mariota wasn't 100%, I would still give them the edge over the Browns. To me, that's how bad the Browns are. I've said it before, they're slowly going in the right direction, but this isn't their year. Titans have more weapons offensively, especially with those two running backs with Mariota. I like them in terms of the advantage offensively, and then defensively, I have to give pretty much the edge defensively to whatever team is going up against the Browns, just because the Browns have zero weapons. Their running game, all that hype about Crowell, blah blah blah, that was all just a bunch of smoke. He hasn't done anything, and nobody on that offense scares me for the Browns. So I give the edge to the Titans. Don't really care that it's at Cleveland. I'm gonna go ahead with the better team. I think this is an easy choice. Titans to win outright. As far as the spread goes, Browns are at +5.5. And honestly, the only way that the Browns are going to cover the spread is if they get a garbage time touchdown. And I don't want to rely on that, so I'm going to go ahead and say Titans cover the spread in this win. Cover the spread in this win. Continuing on, we have a game that could have been one of the games of the year candidate with the Saints versus the Packers in Green Bay. But obviously, we know the unfortunate news with Aaron Rodgers and the broken collarbone. So Packers obviously not the same team after that. Still though, Packers are at 4-2. Their loss versus the Vikings, you can't really count that in my book. If Rodgers was there, completely different game. On the flip side, the Saints had a really impressive win versus the Lions, had a nice defensive performance again, and I think not a lot of people are talking about the Saints, but honestly, we should be. They've got all the weapons offensively. Their defense has been playing better. I think they've put together some nice performances, and I think they could be one of the top teams in the NFC, especially with the Packers losing Rodgers now. The game is in Lambeau, so that is a nice home field advantage for the Packers, but honestly, with Huntley there, I don't think that the Packers offense has the same kick to it. He is more mobile and presents that kind of problem, but not nearly as accurate of a passer as Rodgers, doesn't have the same chemistry with the receivers. So a game where normally the Packers rely offensively on, they're going to have to be balanced both offensively and defensively, and they just have too many injuries right now at the moment. I don't think they'll be able to do so. The Saints, they'll be able to put up their points, especially versus that weak Packers defense. And like I said, Packers without Rodgers just don't have enough firepower for me. I like the Saints to win this on the road. The Packers, in terms of the spread, they're plus 5.5, and like I said, a lot of that is because this game is at Lambeau. If it was in New Orleans, that spread would be even more skewed. I do like the Saints to win by at least a touchdown. For that reason, got to go with the Saints to cover the spread. But I will say this will be a good measuring point as to what the Packers are without Rodgers. And if they do surprise a lot of people, I will feel a lot better about picking them moving forward, and even more so against the spread. Transitioning to an AFC divisional matchup, we have got the Jaguars at the Colts in Indy. And with this game, I think we got to start talking with the Colts and the Andrew Luck shoulder setback. And the more news that are coming out, the more and more it's looking like Luck is less likely to play this season, or play at least in the foreseeable future. Colts sitting at 2-4 with the loss versus the Titans. The Jags sitting at 3-3 with their loss to the Rams. I think this game comes down to the Jags defense versus the Colts offense, and the Jags just are a better defensive team, and the Colts won't be able to, I think, get out of their own way. I think the MO for the Colts has been versus good defensive teams, they really struggle, and you see that team is not the same team without Luck. And versus bad defensive teams, they're in the games more so, and as far as a result goes, win or loss, it's a coin flip. And unfortunately, the Jaguars are not in that category of poor defensive teams. If anything, that has been their strength all season. And on the flip side, Bortles, Leonard Fournette, I do think Fournette plays. We had a little bit of a scare with him last week, but I think he escaped all serious injuries, and the Colts defense, nothing to write home about. So, it might be on the road for the Jaguars, but everything points to the Jaguars winning this game. I think it's as simple as the Colts without Luck just don't have a chance in this game. So I'll take the Jaguars to win outright. And as far as the spread goes, Colts plus 2.5. If the Jaguars win this game, it's going to be by more than a field goal. So I'm going to go ahead and take them against the spread as well. Now shifting gears to an NFC divisional game, we've got the Cardinals at the Rams, and I'll say a couple things. With the Cardinals sitting at 3-3, a lot of the perception for them was gloom and doom, but then they make that trade for Peterson, and their offense completely explodes. Peterson has a typical Peterson game, over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Fitz gets open, goes wild. Palmer has a pretty good game, albeit this was versus a Bucs team without Winston. And I will say, what a difference a week makes, because now the perception for the Cardinals is they might be able to vie for a playoff spot as a wild card team. We'll see. I have to see them do that versus a better defensive team. I think the Rams team, that we've got is a good matchup, especially in these divisional games that can be lower scoring. And I don't think, as well as Adrian Peterson played, you know, I don't think he'll be able to sustain that. Obviously, he didn't have a lot of usage in New Orleans, so he was still pretty fresh, but I think that wear and tear will catch up to him later on in the season. With the Rams, they had a nice win versus the Jags. Now go back home and face a divisional team in the Cardinals, who, you know, I think will put up a fight. I think this will be a close game. I could see it being a low-scoring game. To me, it'll either be a low-scoring game or a shootout. One of those, nothing in between, and it'll be close regardless. I do like the Rams to win outright. You know, I think they've been more consistent, and at this point in the season, I like the consistent teams. They had an impressive win versus the Jags, and I don't know how much to contribute with the Cardinals win to Winston just not being there. So I'll pick the Rams to win outright. But as far as the spread goes, Rams are -3.5. This is another one of those coin flip games for me, and I think whoever wins this game wins by a field goal. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Cardinals to cover the spread on their end. Continuing our long list of divisional games, we have got the Jets at the Dolphins in Miami, and this is actually the second time these two teams are going to face each other. And if you remember their first meeting, that was when the Jets kind of started surprising a lot of people and got one of their quality wins in New York. But now I think with this being a divisional game, usually these games you split when you're home, when you're away. So for that reason, logic tells me that the Dolphins are going to win this game. Might not be pretty, you know, might be close game, but I think Dolphins coming up with a nice win. You know, they beat the Falcons, shocked a lot of people, and then the Jets, they were in a competitive game, even though it was in a loss versus the Patriots, and they played the Patriots close. They were leading the Patriots, and you know, we don't know how that game turns out if it wasn't for that no touchdown call with ASJ. You know, a lot of people were shocked and pissed off with that, and I understand that. But unfortunately, just a call against the Jets and could have cost them the game, honestly. So I think both teams are going to be coming out with a lot to prove. The Dolphins to show whether which Dolphins team is for real. Is it the team that beat the Falcons or the team that lost the Jets earlier in the season? And with the Jets, it'll be, you know, we just hung in there with the Patriots. Is this something that we can continue to do, or are we going to revert back to our old ways of, you know, giving the kind of games that people expect and us not being relevant? Without a question, Dolphins have more pieces offensively. To me, it just matters which Jay Cutler shows up. Do they get the running game going? Ajayi showed some signs last week of his old self, so hopefully he continues on and they can, you know, they can make some noise and they can get that monkey off their back as far as the running game is concerned. And then defensively, I think the Dolphins have more talent. So for that reason, I like the Dolphins at home to win this game outright. As far as the spread goes, the spread is at -2.5 for the Dolphins, and I think this game will get decided by a field goal. Now, I like I said, Dolphins, I picked them to win. I think this series gets split, so I will take the Dolphins to cover the spread as well. From here, we go to the Ravens versus the Vikings in Minnesota. And look, Ravens coming off, honestly, no other way to put it but an embarrassing loss in front of their home fans to the Bears. And what I've been saying about the Ravens all this season, I think honestly it holds true. Offensively, they're just very stagnant. They don't have the weapons that they need. They can't get the running game going. They're not a team that's built to come back from behind, and especially versus a good defensive team, which the Vikings definitely are. The strength with that Ravens team lies in their defense, and if it wasn't for their special teams blowing up last week versus the Bears, the Ravens lose that game ugly, and they don't even get to overtime. So offensively, I got to give the edge to the Vikings. The Vikings are at home in Minnesota, and you know, as far as the two defenses are concerned, worst case, it's a wash, you know? So to me, that still leaves the edge to the Vikings. McKinnon has been playing great football, has been filling in admirably for Dalvin Cook. Keenum looks like right now with Sam Bradford not 100%, he's the better choice. You know, Bridgewater has been practicing, but it's going to be a while until he plays. A couple more weeks at least. So offensively, give the edge to the Vikings. They've got guys that can make a difference. Thielen, Diggs, and for that reason, I like them to win this game. Now, as far as the spread is concerned, Vikings are at -5.5. And like I said before, for the Ravens, if it wasn't for those special teams returns last week, they lose big versus the Bears. And I don't think the Vikings are going to let up those kind of gaffes. So I like the Vikings to actually cover the spread. You know, 5.5 points. I think they can win by a touchdown, if not more. The Ravens just won't be able to keep up with the Vikings. Very bad mismatch offense versus defense. Next, we've got the Cowboys at the 49ers in San Fran. And look, the 49ers, another one of these teams at 0-6. But I think this can actually be an entertaining game because, you know, the Cowboys defense, not that good. The 49ers, they'll air it out. They did, however, make a quarterback change. Hoyer got benched. So now it's up to the rookie. Can he come in there, make a difference again, provide that spark? 49ers almost came back versus the Redskins, but to me, you know, I don't think that that's going to be the case here. I like the Cowboys more. Zeke is going to play. All that talk, is he going to get suspended? Is he not? Look, I'll go out on a limb and say this is going to be the last time we have this conversation this season, and it'll go down the exact same way. People are going to freak out. They're going to talk, you know, McFadden, Morris, but when it's all said and done, Zeke is going to play this entire season. So I give the Cowboys the edge. Offensively, you know, neither of these defenses is really that great, but I think the Cowboys are more opportunistic, and I got to give them the edge defensively for that reason. They just have some more veterans. There's not as young as the 49ers, so I like the Cowboys to win outright. The spread for the 49ers there, +6.5, and I can actually see this game being closer. So for that reason, I'm actually going to take the 49ers with the spread. I think it'll be a close game. I could see some garbage time touchdowns here, and the reason I say that is because that Cowboys defense, again, is not that great. So the 49ers will take some shots, and I think probably the game ends right around that 6-point loss margin for the 49ers. So for that reason, I like them to cover the spread. Now continuing our divisional matchups, we've got the Bengals versus the Steelers in Pittsburgh. And Bengals coming off of a bye. They've played a lot better since their offensive coordinator change. But, you know, this is a divisional game. It's in Pittsburgh, and usually that translates to a close game, not as high scoring. And in those kind of games, I look at the playmakers on each side of the ball, and I got to give the Steelers the edge. They've got Bell, they've got Antonio Brown, Big Ben, and I know everything that's been said about Big Ben. Struggles on the road, struggles at home this year, just hasn't been the same guy. But, you know, when it's all said and done, I've still got more faith in him than I do Andy Dalton. And I think this will be a good game for him to come back. Usually he plays decently well versus the divisional opponents. So I like him to go in Pittsburgh and hand the Bengals a loss. Defensively, you could make the argument this is a wash. Bengals, not too bad of a defense. Steelers, also not too bad of a defense. So to me, Steelers at home, they have the edge offensively. I like them to win. As far as the spread goes, though, Steelers are at -5.5. And to me, that's just a little bit too high with this divisional game and with how the Steelers have looked at times lackluster offensively. Also, the Bengals coming off a bye, they've had extra time to prepare. So I think this game will be closer, and for that reason, I like the Bengals as far as covering the spread. And now, if you thought we were done with AFC divisional games, you were wrong because we've got the Broncos at the Chargers. And talk about two completely polar opposite of performances. Broncos, who were locks of the week for a lot of people, including myself last week, versus the Giants, go ahead and just embarrass themselves at home. And they gave the Giants their first win in Denver, as crazy as that sounds. To me, now going on the road versus the Chargers, tough turnaround. Broncos offense, that's where the problems start. Simeon looked like he got hurt, and it's a question mark as to what we'll see with the quarterback performance for the Broncos. Sanders is going to be out. The Chargers, they go the way Phillip Rivers goes. If he can put up a lot of yards passing, then almost guaranteed you're going to see a nice performance from the Chargers, and I would put my money on them as the favorites. But the problem is that Broncos defense. They're stout, and I think what we saw last week versus the Giants was an aberration. They gave up over 100 yards rushing. They're better than that, but still, they can defend the pass really well, which I think is what the Chargers' strength is offensively in terms of passing the ball. So, also divisional game, I think it'll be a close game. I do like, though, however, the Chargers to win outright. They're at home. Offensively, they have the big edge over the Broncos. Defensively, I do like the Broncos, but I'm just too worried about what they'll be able to do offensively if the Chargers are able to put up points. So for that reason, I'll take the Chargers. As far as the spread goes, Chargers are at -1.5. And we've seen this really common with the Chargers with these really low spreads. And this makes it a really tough game to pick against the spread. I do like the Chargers to win outright, but I could see this game going either way. So for that reason, I'll kind of protect myself and go ahead, pick the Broncos as far as the spread is concerned, and go with them to cover. Moving on, we have got the Seahawks at the Giants. Seahawks coming off a bye at 3-2. Giants, like I just mentioned, with their nice win versus the Broncos. And this game is in New York. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference where this game is being played. I like the Seahawks. They've had extra time to prepare versus the Giants. The Giants do have a nice defense, but Russell Wilson, that mobile quarterback, they've got the weapons offensively. Baldwin, Graham. I think they'll be able to do enough versus the Giants. And I don't think the Giants right now are built to come back from a deficit, especially when they go up against a defense like this. I think it'll be a similar kind of game defensively as it was versus the Broncos for the Giants last week. But where I think the difference will be, it'll be more closer to what we expected to see last week as far as the offensive versus defensive matchup. I don't expect the Giants to get 100 yards rushing again with what Darkwood did versus the Broncos. I expect the Seahawks to win this game, and honestly to win this game easily. I think they're just too well coached coming off the bye, and they'll be able to put up some nice points. I think if I had to pick a game to point out to where the Seahawks can come off of their offensive slump, this would be it. So I like the Seahawks to win on the road. I like them to have an offensive explosion. So for that reason, the spread is +5.5 for the Giants. I think the Seahawks can beat that, and I'll go ahead and pick them to cover the spread. Now transitioning to Sunday Night Football, we've got our rematch of last year's Super Bowl, Falcons at the Patriots. Really going to be an interesting game. Going to be interesting how the Falcons can bounce back. They started off so well, and then they had some of those unexpected losses with the Bills, with the Dolphins, and as far as how Matt Ryan has played, he started out looking really nice, and then he's kind of declined. But if anything, this is where they can break out of that slump, the Falcons offensively. This is where Julio can finally have that phenomenal game versus a Patriots defense that can be taken advantage of. Um, I think I think this is going to be a very high scoring game. I think it'll be advantage Patriots at home. Uh, just like the Falcons are, Patriots are loaded offensively. They've got Brady, who's playing out of his mind, best offense in the league. And for that reason, they've been more consistent. I give the edge offensively to the Patriots. Defensively, I think there's going to be a lot of passion here in this game for the Falcons to kind of make up for their embarrassing collapse in the Super Bowl. So I can't see them, causing some turnovers. But when it's all said and done, I like the Patriots to win. I think it'll be one offense versus another. I think that's what it comes down to. And I like the Patriots offense more. As bad as their defense has been, the last couple weeks they've looked better. So I don't think they're as bad as people want to say. Nonetheless, they can be taken advantage of, but I think they're playing more disciplined football at the moment. I'll take them to win. As far as the spread goes, Patriots are at -3.5. And really tough to call because I think this game could get decided by a field goal. But I do still think Patriots are going to win. So I'll go ahead and take them to cover that -3.5 spread at home. Give them advantage to once again beat the Falcons and not really allow the Falcons to make up for that Super Bowl defeat. And finally, Monday night, our concluding matchup, we've got a divisional one again, Redskins at the Eagles in Philly. And this will be a matchup, honestly, that I think goes a long way in determining NFC East standings, and even more so now with Rodgers hurt, potential wild card placements for the Redskins. Because if they win here, the Redskins are going to be at 4-2, and the Eagles will drop to 5-2. So as far as losses go, they'll be even, these two teams. And I will say, though, however, the Redskins did get their win versus the 49ers, but did not look very convincing in that win. It was kind of up in the air, the result of that game, towards the end of the fourth quarter, and I think that shouldn't have been the case versus a weak 49ers team, which is kind of concerning. And on the flip side, the Eagles, with Rodgers being hurt, with Seattle being inconsistent, with the Falcons kind of being up and down, they are the class of the NFC. We were talking who's it going to be, the Eagles, the Panthers last week. The Eagles looked like the better team. Offensively, Wentz has looked stellar. They have looked really good in the passing game. Wendell Smallwood coming back. I think that'll give a nice little jolt in the rushing game as well. Defensively, I could see this game being a draw because the Redskins still without Josh Norman. The Eagles will be able to pass on them. And this game is in Philly, so for that reason, I honestly do like the Eagles to win this game. They won the first matchup, and that one was pretty close if it wasn't for some questionable calls and some interceptions on the part of Cousins. But Cousins, I will say, has played a lot better since then. Definitely no question about it. He's coming into what we expected of him as far as a top-notch quarterback, at least in fantasy, I'll say that. But they've had some issues offensively, Jordan Reed hasn't looked that good. Terrell Pryor, not what everyone expected him to be. He just hasn't been able to fit into that offense quite yet. So I give the Eagles the edge offensively. And like I said, the defense can be a wash. The Eagles, I think, a little bit more opportunistic. So if anything at home, I'd give the Eagles the edge. So I'll go ahead and pick the Eagles to win outright. As far as the spread goes, though, Eagles at -4.5. This being a divisional game, second time these teams are playing each other, I'm going to go ahead and say that the Redskins can cover the spread. I said that this game gets decided by a field goal, and I think a lot of that is because Cousins has been playing better, and second time around, usually these games are tougher, so give me the Eagles to win outright, but give me the Redskins to cover the spread. So with that, we finished up our pick'em games for the week. Now transitioning to our locks of the week. And honestly, some of these are going to be tougher. I think this is probably the toughest week in terms of locks of the week. But I will start with one that I'm pretty confident about, and that is the Titans versus the Browns. You know, this game might be in Cleveland, but the Browns right now, they're a mess offensively. They keep swapping between quarterbacks. They can't make their mind up. And on the flip side, Mariota has another week to get healthier. So I'm going to go ahead, pick the Titans to win this game as one of my locks of the week. Then I've got the Saints versus the Packers. Rodgers being out of this game makes this game a lot easier to side with the Saints. And I think, quietly the Saints have looked like a really good team in the NFC. I'll go ahead, I'll pick them to win this game on the road. When it's all said and done, it might be close, but without Rodgers, the Packers just are not the same football team. Next, I want to look at the Ravens versus the Vikings. To me, I like the Vikings to win this game. You know, the Ravens offensively, they can't keep up with too many teams, and this is just a really bad mismatch, offense versus defense. Give me the Vikings to win this game. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and might be a little bit of a dicey pick. Panthers at the Bears. Panthers coming off a loss, Bears coming off a victory, so arrows trending opposite directions, but look, I think the Panthers, even without Luke Kuechly, can win this game. Cam, he's had good games versus the Bears in the past, historically, and I don't think the Bears are going to be able to rely on the run as much this game, so to me, I'll give the Panthers the edge and pick them as my last lock of the week. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my analysis of the rest of the games of these locks of the week? Let me know what you think. If you have other opinions, as always, questions, leave them in the comments section. And if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.